Hello again, Lockpicking Paul here, and what I've got tonight is a Brahma. This is an MD27. It's a massive, super solid deadlock, and this has got the famous Brahma core in it. Let's go and see if we can get a better light on that. This is like a 7-wafer or slider core. It looks a bit like a pump lock, but it's not. Once it's picked, the lock will fully rotate. So it's a slightly unique, well, not slightly, it is a unique mechanism. There's nothing else that's got a mechanism like this, I think. It stood the test of time. I think the original patent of the original lock dates to like the late 1700s. And the modern lock hasn't really changed a whole lot since then. I think it's a little simpler now than it was originally. And these cores are common to the modern locks, and that's the crux very much of this video, which was how do I solve tensioning this? Because you've got a whopping great spring underneath a plate which sort of slides up and down, and you need to take that spring tension off of this core so that you can then set the individual sliders height without the spring and the plate resetting the slider. So you kind of need 3 hands to pick this. So solving tensioning was a real issue, and I've seen it done a number of different ways. I've seen like an octopus arrangement used, and I've seen someone sort of jam a pin or a bar underneath the corner edge. And the problem with the octopus arrangement, for me at least, is I couldn't really see to get in there and thinking to myself, that looks like a really complex tool. Is there a simpler way? And I think I found it, but it relies on something in this lock which I'm not entirely sure was broadly common across all of these locks. I think it is now because I've got a second example. So the bottom slider, you'll notice, is there. And if you take a look at the key, these are the depth cuts on the key, but the cam driving lug, well, there's a slider directly underneath that. And the depth of that slider is limited by the need for the cam lug to be there, which means, yes, I think that bottom slider needs to be set, but I think it only has one position it gets set to. So you put the key in, that engages with the spring, you've got to push it down and then turn, and it works beautifully. So if we have a tensioner, we can push the plate down and set the slider depth in the bottom wafer and provide rotational torque. We've solved all of those problems in kind of one go, but that's only valid if that applies to more than one lock. So I needed to get a second one of these locks because my only frame of reference for that theory was this lock. And these are hard to come by. They're hard to come by for 2 reasons. They seem to be absolutely bulletproof. So I think when they're installed and they're installed forever. So they don't come up secondhand very often. When they do come up secondhand, they are ludicrously expensive. £150 sort of is a good secondhand price for one of these. So finding one with a key for a very reasonable sum of money requires quite a lot of trawling. And I got dead lucky with this one. But now I needed a second lock, and that makes life difficult. Well, I found one. So this one here is the MD27. I then found an NS17. NS27. Yeah. So this is the narrow style version. Slightly different. This one has an electronic sender in it, so when it unlocks, it triggers that micro switch for an alarm or something. What I've done is I've taken it apart so we can take a look at the core. Take this out. There's our lock mechanism. I don't have a key for this one, which made it a bit cheaper to get hold of. And again, it was a bit of a lucky find. But there's our core. There's not much to it, but I'll do a full gutting of the other one when I pick it. But what I want to show you on this one, if I can get the actual core out, is that wafer and how it applies to the key to the other lock. I'm just going to prove actually that key does not unlock this lock. It doesn't work in this lock. Goes in, there's a spring, but it won't turn. So this isn't the key to this lock. However, we take this lock core out, Come on. It's a bit stiff in there. Nearly coming. Right, it's free. Here are our sliders. That's the 6 o'clock slider, the bottom one. And if we take that out, just to orient on this, the true gate, why is that not focusing? Come on, focus. The true gate is the one at the top, that's the deep gate, and the false gate is the one at the bottom. And every single wafer has a true gate and a false gate. If I take the key to the other lock and line this up like so, and I'll do the same when I pick the other lock, you'll notice that the depth that the slider gets set to, you can see the true gate lining up with the tip of the key. And all of the wafers do that. Every single wafer, you take them out and line them up. Subject to the depth, your true gate is at the bottom tip of the key, like so. But the point I'm making here is the 6 o'clock wafer in this lock and the 6 o'clock wafer in the other lock are identical in terms of the bitting. So I think these modern 7 wafer Brahma locks have a common 6 o'clock wafer, which means if we make a tensioner that sets the depth of that wafer and allows you to depress the spring and drive rotational force on the cam, then all your tensioner needs to be is this, which is effectively, I've just made this from a piece of tubing. That's all it is. You've got to give yourself some room, so you can't have the teeth that wide on the tensioner because you've got to be able to move the sliders. You don't want this thing to touch the sliders. But this will still give us the force we need and set the depth in one go. Simple. It wasn't too much work, a little bit of grinding, a little bit of silver soldering, and it was job done. So what we'll do is we'll get all this set up in a vise. I'll get the other lock picked and we'll take it apart and we'll do a bit of a compare. And there you go. I'll be back in a moment. Right, so it's going to be interesting. First time I've picked it through a camera lens. An already difficult lock. I'm making it harder for myself. Okay. There we go. First things first, let's take the spring tension off. Okay. Bit of core movement. Bit more. Oh, bit more. Right, okay. Quite a lot. So I've got a wafer that's stuck in the false gate. So what I need to do is back the tension out completely. Hang on. So counter rotate the core whilst keeping the tension down and just free that wafer ever so slightly. It's not moving at the moment. I think that might have it. We'll see how we do. not yet. I've actually got 2 stuck in full skates, I think. So, try that again. What often happens is if I do free this slide up, it will overset. I'll have to retrieve it, which will be a pain. Oh, it's better. Yeah, I've overset it. Right. This is where it gets tricky. I've tried to use tweezers to get these wafers or sliders back, but I find it to be problematic. I tend to have to hook it out. I'm not sure if that's done it. It may have. Test that. Don't feel too bad. Test all the wafers. That one was definitely unseated. Right. Visibility here is really tricky. I think I've got this wafer, is the second one round, that is stuck. I think that one is still overset. There we go, got it back. Right. Let's try again. It's not binding now. Okay, what else is wrong? Okay, better. Oh, that was better. I think we're close. Got a lot of core movement just then. There we go. That's open. So let's put the torque bar in. So what I have to do is one of the high lift wafers jumps out. I need to give it a jigger. There we go. It's come out again. Not sure why that wafer keeps jumping out of its gate. There we go. Open. Brahma open. Delighted. Just going to lock it back up again. It's that wafer there, I think, jumps out. It's really frustrating, this. Get it open and it's playing silly buggers. Okay, so here we are with the lock out of a vise and the tensioner still jammed in there. So I haven't been able to free the wafer that's jumped out of the gate, and so therefore the tensioner is jammed. So we're going to have to take this apart, which I was going to do anyway, just to free it. So let's do that. We'll give it a full gutting. This plate is actually part of the lock itself, so the actual lock mechanism. You just free that. Just got to get it off of that lug at the other end. There we go. Again, that's freed. So the actual mounting for the lock is in this housing. So this is actually an operable part of the lock. There's our mechanism. This is a two lock. It's got one on either side of it. So let's take that out, if I can. Not had it come out in that way before. Let's get that lifted out. There we go. So that is the Brahma mechanism. Incredibly small and simple. Fantastic little lock that is. Right, let's get this gutted. So the gates are on these metal plates on either side. Right now, you can see it sort of turns sort of 7/8 of the way around. So what we can do is just take the gate plates off, I think. I'm going to have to remove the wafers first. Let's have a look at that. The tweezer's gone. Oh yeah, do those first. That's the 6 PM wafer. That's the one that's the same on the other core I showed right at the beginning. So I'll show you this. You can see that wafer lines up with that bottom bitting, so the true gate lines up perfectly. So that 6 PM position, I think, is common to all of these modern Brahma locks, which means if you've got a tensioner that needs to straddle that wafer or slider, it's not a problem, because it does need to be set, but only to one height. So that, I need to see more of these locks. My only frame of reference is 2 locks, but they are identical with different bittings. So, right. Take the rest of these out. That's the order. These aren't going to come out, are they? Oh, that one is, right. Springy little suckers. They are only bits of bent metal. There we go. We'll zoom in a minute. So the lock itself, how this works is the whole brass item turns, and it's these plates that effectively allow the gates to pass. So it's a slightly unusual mechanism. I can show you a bit more about this. Right, there we go. Center lug, and there's the spring. Right, that's the whopping great spring that we had to unload first of all. It lives in the middle of this, so that's completely apart now. There's nothing more to it than that. That just sits in there, and those gates are held in place in this housing. They sit in here like this. If I can show it. Best way to do it is slot these back in here, and I'll show it that way. Without the wafers in, we'll be able to rotate it. So yeah, that's the lock there, and if it was unlocked, that just rotates round. Great mechanism. And it's at least 120, 130 years old. It's not really changed significantly in that whole time. So yeah, let's show these. What I'll do is I'll bring them all down. We'll zoom in. So yeah, the short gaps are the false gates, and the deeper gaps are the true gates. Every single one of these sliders or wafers has a false on it. But they are very, very unforgiving. So if you get one stuck in a false, you're going to have to back the tension right out and do a bit of jiggery pokery. Definitely a tricky old lock, that. Really, really fascinating thing. And look at the substantive build of that. That is really robust. Fantastic lock. Okay, there you go. That's the Brahma. And it's picked and gutted, and I'm delighted because that thing is a pain in the neck. Right, cheers.